The war was lost, Berlin was burning, and the men who had built the most murderous empire in modern history were either dead, captured, or about to stand trial. But nobody was asking about the women, the wives, the ones who had lived inside that world, enjoyed every piece of it, and had nowhere left to run. What happened to them was not fast, it was not clean, and for some of them, it lasted the rest of their lives. By the last days of April 1945, Berlin was unrecognizable. The Red Army had pushed deep into the city. Artillery shells were hitting. Buildings every few minutes. Entire neighborhoods had been reduced to rubble. Water was gone. Food was nearly gone. And in the center of it all, beneath the garden of the Reich Chancellery, Adolf Hitler and his closest followers were hiding underground in the Führerbunker. Thick concrete walls, narrow hallways, small, dimly lit rooms. Everyone inside knew the end had arrived. The only question was what form it would take. On April 29, 1945, Hitler married Eva Braun in a brief ceremony inside the bunker. Just a handful of witnesses, no celebration. The following afternoon, they went into his private, studied together and never came out alive. Eva took cyanide. Hitler shot himself. Their bodies were carried into the garden above and burned with gasoline as Soviet troops closed in from just meters away. But the horror inside that bunker was not finished. Magda Goebbels had come to the bunker weeks earlier. She brought all 6 of her children with her. The youngest was 4 years old. The oldest was 12. Even as Berlin collapsed above them, she kept the children clean and dressed neatly every single day. She maintained a routine. She kept them calm because Magda had already made her decision long before anyone else in that bunker had made theirs. She believed that a world without the Reich was not a world worth living in. On the evening of May 1st, the children were given sleeping medicine. Once they were unconscious, Magda placed a cyanide capsule in each child's mouth. All 6 children died in their beds, side by side, in the small sleeping quarters of that underground shelter. Later that night, Magda and Joseph walked up to the garden. He shot her, then himself. Their bodies were burned near the same spot where Hitler had been cremated the night before. Above ground, Soviet forces raised their flag over the Reichstag on May the 2nd. Berlin had fallen. Across Germany, the unraveling was spreading fast. In the town of Demmin alone, nearly 900 people died by their own hand in just a few days. Women, children, entire families. Some drowned in the river. Others used poison. Many had direct ties to the Nazi regime and feared what was coming. Others simply could not face the reality of what the arrival of Soviet soldiers meant for them personally. For women married to Nazi officers, the choice felt impossible. Surrender meant exposure, and being connected to the Nazi elite, even only as a wife, felt like more than enough to destroy everything that remained of a person's life. Emmy Göring had spent the war years living like royalty. Her husband Hermann was Reichsmarshal, one of the most powerful men in the entire Reich. She wore the finest clothes. She attended ceremonies beside Hitler. She lived in mansions filled with priceless art, most of it stolen from Jewish families across Europe. In June of 1945, Allied soldiers found her at a castle in the Austrian Alps. Everything ended that afternoon. She was taken to a detention center. Her young daughter Edda was separated from her for months. Every possession she owned was seized. People who had once treated her with deep respect now ignored her completely or called her a criminal to her. But when Hermann was sentenced to death at Nuremberg, nobody told Emmy directly. She found out only after he had already taken cyanide in his cell the night before his scheduled execution. She was released in 1948 with no money, no home, and almost no one left who would speak to her. She died in Munich in 1973. No public funeral, no announcement, nothing. Margarete Himmler's story was colder. Her husband Heinrich had already killed himself in May 1945 after being captured by British forces, but Allied investigators still needed her. She was held near Nuremberg and questioned for months while evidence of the most horrific SS crimes in history was being presented in the courtroom just outside her door. She told investigators her husband had been a good man. She claimed she had no knowledge of concentration camps or mass murder. Investigators found this nearly impossible to believe. She had lived directly inside the SS world for years. She had received its benefits. She had attended its functions, and yet Margarete never admitted to knowing anything at all. She was released. In early 1946, changed her name and disappeared completely. No interviews, no public statements, no admissions of any kind. She died in 1967. No obituary, no recognition, just silence. Lina Heydrich had more time than most. Her husband Reinhard had been assassinated in Prague back in 1942, which gave her years to prepare before the Reich finally collapsed. Before fleeing, she destroyed as many of his personal papers as she could. She ended up on a small island in northern Germany, bought a farmhouse, and opened a guest house to survive. Locals knew exactly who she was. Most kept their distance. Her children were excluded and teased at school, but Lina never expressed a single moment of regret. Through the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s, she She gave interviews insisting her husband had only followed orders and bore no responsibility for the Holocaust, even though Reinhard Heydrich had helped organize the very conference where the final solution was formally planned. She died in 1985, still defending him, still denying everything. By the early 1950s, most of these women had vanished into obscurity, changed names, small apartments, remote towns. The mansions were gone, the ceremonies were gone, the stolen luxuries and the private staff and the grand titles were all completely gone. What remained was a reputation that followed them into every room they ever entered for the rest of their lives. Former friends disappeared. Neighbors kept their distance. Their children changed their last names and moved away, trying to build lives that had no connection to the wreckage their fathers had left behind. None of them were ever welcomed back into public life. No monuments, no honors. Most of them died quietly, alone, in rooms far smaller than the ones they had grown used to. They had lived at the center of one of the most destructive regimes in all of human history. They had accepted everything it offered, and when it fell, they spent the rest of their lives carrying the full weight of that choice. Some carried it with silence, some carried it with denial, and a few carried it with a loyalty so stubborn and so complete that it was, in its own way, the most disturbing thing of all. The war ended in 1945, but for these women, the consequences never did.